And you've just heard If You Don't Ask, You Don't Get by Hollow Horse from their new album, Leaving Without Saying Goodbye. And I'm delighted to be joined by Kenny from the band now. Hello, Kenny.
Hello there, Ali. How are you doing?
I'm really well. I'm really well. So tell us about the new album and the songs on it.
The new album. It's our fourth album. There was a delay of nearly 15 years between the third one and the fourth one, due to various circumstances, part of it being the mighty COVID, which gubbed it for absolutely everybody. But it's quite a different way of working for us this time. Before, we were a live gigging band. Originally, Hollow Horse, we started when I left art school, which was in 1984. So that's how long been going. What's that in terms of years? 30 years? 35 years? Something like that. We've been going a long time. We're originally an 8-piece band. And we were gigging all over the place, all over Scotland, every venue you can think of. Then we got a gig and only 4 people out of 8 turned up.
Right.
So we had to carry on and do the gig. And I suddenly realised we've got actually 4 excess members here that we didn't actually need. So we cut So I made the phone calls the next day. And if you sack me, you sack, that stuff. You sack me, you sack him, blah, blah, blah. And it all collapsed. But we've been going as a 4-piece. But what happened was on this record was the bass player that I've known, a man that I've known for 45 years, died suddenly. And that's why it's called Leaving Without Saying Goodbye.
Right.
He was here rehearsing on the Tuesday night, and by the Saturday, gone out like a light. So it was a real shocker.
Oh, absolutely.
It started to make me think about, I was quite happy writing the songs in the house. And when you write a song in the house, it's quite different from being in a band when you're in a rehearsal studio and you can make a noise.
Yeah.
So they were all quite gentle, really, all written on acoustic guitar. So that's a departure for us. It's also a departure in terms of the way we recorded it, because the original bass player died, and the bass player that we're working with stays in Belfast. Right. So we had no opportunity to rehearse as a band and work the songs the way that most bands would do. So we were forced to work remotely, which is a thing I've never tried before. And we also didn't record real live drums just because of the nature of the studio. We just decided to use a computer program for it. We've been programmed in by our drummer, but not actually physically hitting the kit. So it gives it the record. I think it's quite a departure from the first 3 records to this one.
So you've been going for a long time, as you say, with breaks, lengthy breaks, clearly in between. How do the albums split up over that time? When did you release your first album?
This one was, I think it was 2003. I think it was the first one. It was called 5 Years. You can hear quite a difference because the technology over that 20-year period has moved on vastly. So the first one is a live band. We were a gigging live band, rehearsing every week, recorded as you would do, going for a performance. And the last one, as I say, was we were all over the country. There's a guitar player that stays in Brighton. So he added some guitar for Brighton. The bass player's in Belfast. So it's quite different. So it was over that 20-year period. I think the albums have improved as the songwriting's improved and as the technology's improved. And for the first time, we've introduced female singers. So we've got 2 female singers in the band again, which we've not had since we were a gigging 8-piece.
Yeah, I know. I noticed that listening to the album, and that changed from, so when you were gigging for all those years, playing live, playing your own songs, yeah?
Yeah.
So why did it take so long to decide to record something?
Because it is a gigging in all these venues in Glasgow and all around the country. It's a thankless task.
Yeah.
It really is a thankless task. You play and you play and you play and you play and you play. And it was like a treadmill. We just went round the same venue, and we played all the great venues at that time, like the Fix, which was a venue on Miller Street.
I know it well.
Right, it was a great venue. It's a real shame to lose a place like that. But it was a treadmill. You just go round them and round them and round them. And all of our contemporaries get signed up
Yeah.
All the famous Glasgow bands, we were there playing the same places that they were playing at the very same time. It's to do with luck. They had luck, we didn't have luck.
That's so interesting, Kenny, because I was listening to the album and I thought, this is a sound that you can hear other bands, or at least similar bands, kind of sing a really great songs, storytelling songs, but then you're the band that maybe just didn't quite get the luck to get.
Didn't make it. We were the band that time forgot.
That's
But
so
we kept going. We never stopped. People say, "Why do you keep doing it?" Because I have to.
Yeah.
Because I have to do it. It's not so. If I could, I would play golf. That's what I would do instead of music. It has been a curse. Absolutely. Ali, help me. I'm cursed.
So you're talking about some of your contemporaries in the 80s in particular. Who would they be? Who else was kind of doing the circuit at the time?
The Big Dish. I was at art school with Stephen Lindsay at the Big Dish, and the guitar player Brian McPhee plays on 3 of the albums. He plays on one of the tracks on this new one too. He's a tremendous player. He's in a band called Lola and Slacks.
Lola and Slacks, who I've played on the show before. Yeah, I've seen them live.
Right, yeah, we know Brian well.
Yeah,
and the engineer, the one who contributes the most to the sound really is Brian McNeil. Brian McNeil is the ex-keyboard player from China Crisis.
Right.
It's kind of name drops are falling on my head here, Ali, but that's what the guy did, and he's absolutely brilliant. If you want a producer, use Brian McNeil. As far as I'm concerned, he's the best that Scotland's got to offer. He was tremendous, and he produced all 4 albums.
And I'm now getting flashbacks to my teens and early 20s and going out to gigs and things like that. I remember, for instance, seeing Wild River Apples play a tremendous gig at Fix. I mean, it was right, standing room only. And there was great live music in Glasgow at that time, in Glasgow in particular at that time.
Exactly. I was at that gig, so I know exactly what you're talking about. Because I used to go to the Fix all the time. Wet, 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 Deacon Blue.
Yeah.
They all played it, and we were playing it too.
Yeah. So now you've, again, taken into account how long you've been making music, what are the kind of major changes that you've seen? You said the technology, but good and bad, what's the big changes that you've...
The big changes, I found a fact a couple of weeks ago. There'll be more music released this week than the whole of 1970.
Yeah.
The whole of 1970 put together, there's more music released in these 7 days. And that's what's changed.
Yeah.
Because now recording is cheap. All you need to do is buy or sell a laptop, an Apple iMac or whatever it is, and you record in your house, and it's dead easy to release. So it's almost impossible to be heard because just of the sheer volume of material that's out there. That's the biggest change.
It's absolutely true. I did a talk recently to some university students who are doing music courses, and just saying that every week, for instance, we put together a new music playlist of 20 songs long, and I've never not been able to fill it. There's always, and good music, mind, really good stuff, but just so much of it. And it is difficult to because then you might get a play on something for a week, maybe 2 weeks, but then people move on to the next thing.
That's right. Absolutely spot on. That's the biggest change I see.
Yeah. That's interesting because it's something that's definitely been noted as well. I didn't realise the figures were quite so bare as you've just mentioned.
Amazing, isn't it?
Yeah.
7 days, there's more music released this 7 days than the whole of a year.
But this move of technology that you mentioned, it is interesting that it's allowed you to get this album out despite everything.
Yes, exactly.
So has that been a learning curve as well, to kind of find new ways of working?
It's Kenny, the bass player, dying that really forced my hand. There's a great jazz guitar player on YouTube, Bruno, can't remember his name, and on his YouTube channel he talks about, I'm nearly 70 now, and this is the way he puts it: 70, the death decade. The death decade, and that's the way I feel as well. I'm 65. You know, you think, how long have I got to do this before it all disappears? And Kenny dying on us,
Yeah.
forced their hand and made me, I'm going to do it, I'm going to start it. And we weren't ready to record yet, but I still booked the studio, and in we went. And it took us 7 months to put this together.
And that's a desire to keep going. You mentioned earlier, you're kind of, help me, I'd love to be a golfer, but I'm making music.
Exactly.
But that desire has remained clearly from those early gigs, you know, doing the circuit as it was. It just never has, you know, you've always said, this is what I do.
I'll tell you a story about when I was in primary school, how this all started. I don't know if you'll find this interesting or not. The teacher in primary school used to sit at a big desk. She went to her cupboard and she brought out a wee blue box and opened it up, and it was a wee ukulele.
Right.
And she sang Way Down Upon the Swanee River to the whole class. She put us in a semicircle, and then she gave the first wee boy a shot of the ukulele, and they passed it along the line. When it got to me, it went no further. I just wouldn't give it up. I just went, I'm not giving it up. And every day I would take the keys off her desk, and she's watching me and I'm watching her, and I would open the cupboard and take out the wee blue box, and she didn't stop me once. She never stopped me. So my last year at primary school was spent sitting playing a ukulele in the class. She never stopped me. How good was that? I think it was absolutely amazing. That woman had a bigger effect in my life than my own parents.
Yeah.
She really did.
Yeah.
And it turned out years later, I ended up at her funeral. I would be the only one from that time period that was at her funeral, and I got to meet her daughter. It was wonderful.
Fantastic.
I hold her in high regard. She was the one that started it all, and it never left me, and it never will.
And right before we started recording, you were in a different room, and I was seeing your beautiful guitars and behind you and everything. So that boy who picked up the ukulele still there.
Exactly. It became a hobby. We started recording. I thought that would be nice for a saxophone, and then we were paying somebody to play saxophone on the record. I thought, I wonder could I play it? So I bought a saxophone. Then I bought another. So I bought a tenor, an alto,
right,
a soprano saxophone, a trumpet, a trombone, a cello, a violin, a viola, and I can now do all these instruments, not brilliantly. I can't play them brilliantly, but I can play them enough to fake it when you're recording. So if you mute each track and you listen to the trumpet, you go, geez, oh, what's that? That's dreadful. But when you put the saxophones in and the trombone in, it sounds like a brass section that you've created for yourself. So that is my hobby, learning instruments.
And are you going to be taking these out live? Is there other plans? And you said that no. Okay, why is that? Because you're so far away from each other.
Well, one, there's not a functioning band that could gig.
Right.
Two, I wouldn't know how to get a gig even if I tried.
Right.
One of the reasons we stopped playing was it was the start of pay to play.
Right.
And I refused to do it. You'll hire our PA for 150 quid. So you have to pay them 150 quid. They would give you tickets, but they have to get the ticket money as well. And it was just ridiculous. You know, as an older man, you go, that's just, and I point blank refused to do it. I would only gig if it was worthwhile, if it was tea in the park or something like that. Yeah. And that's the level I think we should be at for all the years and time that we've put into it. I'm not going back to playing a wee tiny pub on Great Western Road.
Yeah. And it's a shame for me, because listening to the album, there are songs that you would love to, you know, you can tell, I think, that at your heart, you've been a live band, because it sounds like a band who you know, know how to play their instruments and know how to kind of get the songs out there. People
say, why does it sound like that's what we get compared to, Prefab Sprout, XTC, Elvis Costello, Paul Weller. Why do we? I'll tell you why we sound like that. Because I'm the same age as these people in these bands, and I listened to exactly the same records in the 60s that they did. That's why we sound the way we sound. It's funny you should say that. Certainly the track we heard earlier on,
I thought, oh, there's some prefab sprout in there. But and then, of course, that's the reason why. And where does the name come from, Kenny?
It came from, there was a film called Stalag 17. It was a war movie.
I know the one you mean, yeah.
And in the thing, the guy had the chess piece and he was there was a spy in the camp and he pulls down the light to let the Germans know. And I always thought it was a hollow horse, but it wasn't. It was a queen. So it was taken from hollow horse, as in you can put a wee message inside it. And also like the idea of the Trojan horse, that you don't realise what these songs really are. You think it's one thing, like May the Scales Be Fair is actually about a wee girl that died. So you think it's a wee jolly pop song, but there's a darker hidden meaning behind it. It's interesting.
We're going to hear. Sorry.
I used to be a school teacher, and an old techie teacher said, have you ever seen this? He gave me a wee bit of paper. It was a wee poem called Happy. And he told me the story about it. It was a wee girl that died in a minibus crash. And when her family were clearing out her wee room, they found a wee poem that I think she'd written. It's called Happy. The time to be happy is now. The place to be happy is here. And the way to be happy is to make others so, which I thought was beautiful. And that's what I incorporated, that whole wee poem, into May the Scales Be Fair and the weights be equal. Now is the time, here is the place, and I want to see the smile on your face. So it all comes directly from that. So that's the hollow horse thing about you think the songs are one thing, but they're actually something else.
And I think that's exactly what they are. The first time you listen, you're kind of taken away with the melodies and the arrangements and all those things, but then you start to listen to the lyrics throughout, and and feel that these are often serious songs. And from what you've explained, the inspiration for doing it, that's understandable. And we'll hear May the Scales Be Fair and Equal in a moment.
One of the tributes we paid to Kenny on the record.
Yeah,
you'll hear it and you'll understand it because I'm telling you. But to anybody else who doesn't know me and doesn't know what the songs are about, it's just a collection of songs. The tribute to Kenny was we had his birthday and the date of his birth as an old telephone.
Yeah.
So May the Scale starts and the number being rung out is Kenny's birthday.
Right.
And it's spread out across the whole track, across the whole album. There are wee tributes to him.
And
I won't go into it because it's just dead boring. But so I know that I paid a tribute to my friend.
Sure, no, absolutely. And the whole album stands as a tribute in that sense.
Yes, it does. I hope so.
I have to say, it's been a while since I've heard that old phone style and the pips at the end as well.
There's a brilliant video on YouTube of a guy that gets a rotary phone and gets his teenage son to try and... He can't do it. The boy has not got a clue how to work a rotary phone. So again, that's showing my age here, but that's how things have moved on. I've got a mobile phone that I never use because I don't need to use it. Yeah. I've got no use for it at all. And yet you walk down the street and teenagers bump into you on their mobile phones. How can you go a bicycle and tap a message to somebody at the same time? And people do it.
Yeah. And it's not just teenagers, believe you me, there's plenty of folk who should know better that are doing that kind of thing. Well, Kenny, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to me. It's been an absolute pleasure.
No, thanks to you, Ali. I'm in your debt. Thank you so much. And it's been a pleasure talking to you.
Oh, great. And this is Hollow Horse and the opening track on the album, May the Scales Be Fair and the Weights Be Equal.